Good evening and welcome to our East Lyme Board of Selectmen regular meeting of September 21st, 2022. If all those that could, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Jerry, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't believe it, but are there any additional agenda and consent calendar items? Seeing none, it's time for delegations. Is Mr. Larkin, if you would come up, please give us your name and address. And
Good evening, Pat Larkin, 14 Oak Hill Drive. I'm currently a member of the town's Park and Rec Commission. I'd like to discuss the Darrow Pond agenda item. Back in late 2020, the commission began discussion on using part of the Darrow Pond property for town recreation. We formed a committee of commission members and town general public to determine ways the property could be used for recreation. A survey was created and the public provided input on what uses would be beneficial to them. The item was on the Selectmen's agenda on February 17th of 2021 and discussed with no action taken, and it has not appeared on any follow-up agendas. The Commission understands there is a conservation easement on 200 of the 200 acres of the 300-acre parcel, and is requesting the town give Park and Rec control of the 100 acres not covered by the easement. The town appropriated $20,000 of ARPA funds to develop a master plan for the area, and at the last Park and Rec Commission meeting, a proposal was selected to develop the master plan. The bid came in at about $22,000. On further commission discussion, it was decided that prior to signing the contract for the master development plan, we would need town authorization for control of the 100 acres. The commission felt it wouldn't be prudent to invest the town's money on a master plan unless we had control of the land. We ask for your support tonight on turning control of the 100 acres over to the Park and Rec Commission. Thank you for your time. I look forward to tonight's discussion.
thank you, Mr. Larkin, and we'll be discussing that too, and input since you're a commission member, you and Mr. Larkin. I mean, Jerry you are Mr. Larkin, and Jerry will be more than, welcome to offer any comments at that point in time. Anyone else wish to speak to the board? Okay, moving on, approval of the minutes of the September 7th, 2022 meeting. I know we have a couple of corrections, but we'll get the motion out there first.
Yeah, let's see. Okay, move to approve the regular meeting minutes of September 7th, 2022 as submitted.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Been seconded by Bill. Comments or corrections? I know Ann Santora, you had one you wanted to address?
Right. I think omitted from the minutes, if you, towards the very end of the minutes after we came out of executive session before adjourning the meeting, there should have been a motion, reference to the motion number 10, discussion and possible action, the UPSU contract, and that was, we moved to authorize the first selectman to enter into the collective bargaining agreement between the town of East Lyme and United Public Service Employees Union, UPSU, and the vote was 5-0. And although it wasn't in the minutes, I went back to the videotape and it was clearly
Definitely in there.
in the videotape.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so we can take care of that. Any other comments?
I just had one other, but while we're
Okay.
making a correction, but under ex officio reports, 4A, I believe that's Ann Cocello and not myself. I mean, this often happens where
Oh, for
confused.
it says Miss
They're
Inter.
sitting next to each
Okay.
other.
right,
Two
same
Anns.
first name.
Same first name.
So, because I didn't have any reports last meeting, but you did. Okay.
Okay, so we'll just change that to.
Yeah, that's fine.
That we understand that now because in town hall here, there's Kevin said it's okay to do it. Well, which Kevin said it's okay to do it? That type of thing. So it's FK for Finance Kevin and KS for Kevin Select. Something. We figured it. We figured it out, I think, so far. So, okay. All those in favor of, are the votes mover and seconder okay with the corrections? Okay. All those in favor of the minutes as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I will abstain.
Okay, Mrs. Hardy abstains. Moving on to the consent calendar.
Okay. Move to approve the consent calendar for the regular meeting of September 21st, 2022 in the amount of $606.72.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. The first item on the agenda, and this is just for discussion tonight because East Lyme Historical Society, now they do have far more detail on why the costs exceeded what they had gotten, what was allocated to them, but I just wanted to give the letter today, and we'll have the documentation moving forward. But they asked if it would be possible to get an additional $16,264 because with the architect's costs and the contractor's estimate, our bid, it exceeded the 22,000 by 16,264. And this is something that we had really not discussed, and no one else has come back requesting the money and that, but this is obviously for something for construction and so forth, so I thought it might be something that we should discuss. Any feelings on the subject?
Well, just for a little background, in terms of what sum of money was not actually appropriated under ARPA, and you probably remember this, but there's only about this is my number, $5,206.44 of that total amount of ARPA money that we got, which was actually not appropriated. Everything else was appropriated. Now, we haven't received, I believe, that last amount from the federal government yet, which is $1,793,013.52. That hasn't come yet, and I think Kevin, you can perhaps speak to that. Yeah. But and a point that a little history that goes directly to this issue of what do you do if a recipient comes back for the same issue, same project, and so forth. At the time that we finished our work on the subcommittee, I had met with Anna Johnson, and a point was made in one of the meetings, but I haven't had the time to go back and find the minutes or the videotape, but what do you do about remainder, what remains in the ARPA fund? So for example, this is assuming the $5,000 can be, appropriated somewhere, and that, let's say an item that was purchased, like the garbage truck that was purchased for less, happily for less. It's going to be probably the odd situation considering our economy at the moment. But what do you do with all that, going forward? And the suggestion was made at the time that we wait until we get into 2020, late 2023, early 24, because we have until the end of 2024 to appropriate by December 31st of 2024. So the feeling was at that point, the lay of the land will be clearer. You'll know who has returned some funds or town projects that will perhaps cost less or have been substituted by something else, not necessary, who knows. And you'll know, so then you can deal with that. The Board of Selectmen can deal with that remainder, so to speak, whatever that might be. So that's the only policy that sort of is existing out there that I'm aware of. Once the subcommittee did its work and suggested the appropriations, and the Board of Selectmen approved those appropriations, there was never further discussion. Well, what if this happens and going forward? Except that we did, when Anna was here at a meeting and I was here in the board, that it came up but briefly that we will wait until we get closer in time. So that's the only policy that
which really wasn't a policy.
Right.
It was not adopted.
It wasn't adopted, but the only thinking on the topic at that point, So
So is it,
Okay, Ann and then Bill.
so I'm not sure how much money was returned from the garbage truck because
$43,000.
43,000, because what's the timing for the Historical Society to, what are they doing? Oh, this is a handicap accessibility.
Right,
Right.
which is something,
Okay.
since it's a town facility, if basically.
Is this time sensitive?
Here again, the quote would, here again, in today's world, yes, costs are escalating, so this cost was only locked in for a period of time, so I think, and plus if they had to wait till the end of next year, or the end of 2024, no idea what, and then again, that facility would not be unused for 2 years, and they wouldn't be able to move into it.
And then the cost could go up
I
additionally.
don't think it would go up.
Yeah.
We know that today.
Yeah.
So I did notice there was one quote as opposed to multiple quotes, but that they're not obliged, because they are who they are. They are not, entity, a governmental entity. It's as a private organization, but they got one quote. But I mean, I would hope that more is perhaps.
I'm sure if I asked Mr. Peck to, get another quote, he would be willing to at least research that. And he may have. This might be their best quote. I don't know, because when he and I spoke, so I can find that out, and I can sell him if there is not another quote that we'd like to. It would help out if he would research that or reach out to someone. Bill?
So we got 43 from the garbage truck, and how much else besides that?
We have a
Unallocated?
little over 5,000
Okay.
from, that was completely not appropriated. So unused, 43K, and unappropriated 5.
So my concern would be that it doesn't seem appropriate that the first organization that comes back and said, hey, we overspent, we get the money because we asked first, right? I know that for the American Legion, all the prices went up, so we started cutting things out. And there's things that we didn't do, that we couldn't get, that were in our initial proposal, that we said, okay, we don't have the money because of inflation to buy these certain things. Handicap, ADA accessibility isn't really in that same category. It's not something you can eliminate.
No.
So it's not apples and apples, but my concern would be that if we say, okay, there's $50,000 plus or minus, we're gonna give them 16 of it, that's, 33%, 34%, and now the next group that comes to us and says, hey, we're, because of whatever, we can't put the lights in that we wanted to put in. It's like, well, sorry, you came second. So I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
I just have a concern
Right.
that the first people that come in get the money and everybody else gets nada.
Yeah.
Well, looking at a lot of the requests from, especially some of the nonprofits and some of the businesses, that was, and we have not heard back from anybody. This is the only organization we've heard back from. And, that's one of the reasons and as I pointed out, it is a town resource. And this is something, without this, for them to fundraise for this, we would probably be talking a couple of years, and it'd make it extremely difficult for them to, get this historical society museum in cooperation with the library. Plus, the library's gotten some grants too, so that's one of the things that why I was looking at it a little more differently. Same thing with Karen Chair. Fortunately, some things came in over, but some things came in under, so it worked to the point where they haven't had a need to request additional money. But here again, that was upkeep we did on a building that we own, and we gave them that money. So that's just it. This is still going to be a town building that technically we still own, but we're not required to put a handicap in there if we're not going to utilize it for that purposes. But I'd be amenable to at least bringing this forward, after doing some more research. And
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I would need more information, and I did go back and look at the library on its website has a survey that you can take concerning the nature of what you would prefer to see in this museum, but I'm not sure about their fundraising efforts in relation to this per se. I know it would have to come out of foundation money, because it wouldn't be, the annual drive money goes to the basic operations of the library itself. Norm Peck had written to members in August that the goal of the organization, the Historical Society, was to raise $100,000 for the project, and so far they received $16,000 in grants, $22,000 from ARP. So, and it was a letter encouraging folks to donate. So, but that's all I had on the donation front, you know, the information about that. And again, the one quote versus, you know, perhaps more.
Wasn't there a letter or something that each recipient of the funds had to sign, or what was
Yes.
that about? 'Cause
So,
I remember, but
yeah,
I
so
can't-
that, I actually have a copy.
Yeah,
of that.
basically, it says that it'll be used for the reason, for the purposes that it has been, you know. And here again, if they have money left over, they can't, oh, we can do this in addition to what we're gonna do.
Right.
Not unless they
So
came
they're
back.
required to then
They
give it
should.
back?
They're required
Okay.
to return whatever, same thing like with the garbage truck, Joe could say, well, look what I can get now, type
Right,
of thing.
right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so, and, Roseanne, any input?
Well, was there any plan to follow up on the proposed expenditure by non-governmental groups? In other words, we know what the garbage truck cost, but how about these other organizations that we really don't have control of? Was there any provision for any kind of follow-up to them to see how the money was spent?
Oh, yeah, there has to be follow-up for that and documentation.
So that's,
That was part of the,
yeah, that's
And
this
program.
thing.
And who
Yeah.
was keeping track of that, or how was
Yes.
it?
Well, the finance
I
office
was
has been
the
keeping.
director of finance, I remember
Yes.
Anna had to sign off on everything?
Yes,
So now it would be Kevin.
yeah.
So that's this agreement, Roseanne, that, yeah, that was, we modeled it after East Windsor's agreement, et
Mhm.
cetera. Our attorneys made the necessary changes.
I
And
think you
it,
made a couple.
yeah, I made a couple too. Yeah, and it's pretty meaty, but I mean, it definitely allows for follow-up and, you know, we expect that there will be a give and take of information and that will, again, heading to the end of '23 and early 2024, we'll have a clearer picture, you know, of things. But I guess it still begs the question is still in our face, what do you do if you have this other situation? Because we didn't convene another subcommittee to meet and deal with all that, so we have to come up with our own, you know,
Well,
system.
actually, I talked to Pandy Waller, and she even, you know, I discussed this a little bit with her, and she said, you know, that was beyond what we felt our scope was. We
Right.
were just advisory. Once we made our provided our input and so forth like that, their work was done, and this falls back to us, so.
Right.
Okay, do we have any idea as to the time frame when these additional monies might be released?
I like to say soon, but soon is a relative term. Kevin, do you have any?
Kevin, do you have any?
I know it's,
Once the department head or whoever says the project's complete, then the money can flow back into the.
oh no, I meant the money we're getting, the additional
the
money from the
1.7.
state.
That, I think there's a 30-day window they have to release it once the state gets it or something.
So that would be, so when, I'm not sure of the date that we got the 900,000 plus, which was, you know, part 2 of ARP for us.
Yeah.
Would you be able
and
to
it's
do
30
some
days after
follow-up?
that.
Oh, excuse me. I thought
No,
you
go
were
ahead.
finished. Would you be able to go back and follow up on that for us?
Yeah.
And see if we could get a little better sense of the time frame as to when that money might be released. Now, these other groups, were they required to turn in any receipts or anything?
Well, again, they do have
yeah.
to provide all the documentation
Yes.
for the, when their projects are completed.
Right.
Some, yeah, they're,
So, how much longer do they have before that has to be complete?
we can check and see and reach out and make sure that, you know,
Yeah.
some may have already done it,
Right.
but we can let you know.
Well, we do have the town policy on getting 3 bids, and I think as we've required others to do that, I think that we should follow procedure and ask for 2 additional bids, as that's what's expected of everybody else. And however, I think that in this day and age, anything that has to do with handicap and handicap accessibility is something that's a high priority. And if they are not going to be able to operate, which I don't believe they can, if they don't have that access. Now, the Smith Harris House was granted a waiver because they had programs on the 2nd floor and there was really no way to make handicap access for that. So the compromise was that any programs that were going to be offered, they would have to video that and that would have to be shown on the first floor in order for any handicapped individuals to have access, the same access as anyone else to programs. That seems to me to be kind of a roundabout way in this particular case, because I think that this facility will get more traffic than an individual standalone house such as Smith Harris, which is now whatever farm or whatever it is. Brookside Farm, thank you. Sorry to, you're ex officio, sorry. So I personally think that if they get the 2 additional bids and they're not able to move forward with their, the ability to make the improvements in order to get this off the ground, then I think we should fund them.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
Yeah, so I certainly think it's important and necessary for them to comply with the purchasing policy and get the 3 bids, and I don't think that's unreasonable to require that. As far as what do we do, and this is the first situation where we've faced the issue of what do we do with the surplus money that may be left over from the ARPA funds. We had a committee, and we gave credence to that committee, and I think, if I'm correct, we supported all of their recommendations. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I don't think it disparages them in any way for us to exert our authority and our right to deal with the rest of the funds without reconvening that committee. I think it would be very cumbersome to have to do that. And I think we're permitted to use our discretion. And this certainly is a legitimate and necessary expense. You can't possibly have a museum without adequate and proper handicapped access. So if we're going to have a museum, then we have to have the handicapped access done the right way. And I would be in favor of using our discretion to fund that additional amount, but after we see the competitive quotes.
Thank you, Dan. I too am in favor, with the quotes, additional quotes, of looking at supporting this request for a couple reasons. Not only would it allow us to finally open up a resource that, we were able to display some, artifacts that are important to the town, but right now we've heard that so many things are being, artifacts or things that are important to town history are being held in people's homes, attics and stuff like that, which is not a good place. It's caused a space constraint in the library because the East Lyme room, which was meant to display artifacts but not store artifacts on a regular basis, I think it would give them a lot more ability there. And here again, fundraising $100,000 is going to be very tough. And I think that they're on a short string financially anyway. This would at least allow them to have an operational place in which to work. We still have to finalize the lease because there's still a few more things the town needs to finish up as far as sealing off an area and so forth like that. But I think moving forward, this would allow them, and here again, if the town ever decided to use that facility, because we've repurposed it. As long as it was a dispatch center, we were fine, but we've repurposed it. We'd have to make that handicapped accessible anyway, the bathroom on the first floor. So if those were made, we do have the resources. And regarding if somebody comes back, I think we have to base it on the merit. There was a couple of groups that have come and asked me, we wish we had submitted. Can we submit now? I said, no, that's sort of like not, we've closed that area. We gave a lot of notice in that. And we also, too, for emergencies, we have set aside some funds for if an emergency pops up over the next, in a decent sum. So
Yes,
I'd be okay moving forward with this. If we hadn't realized some savings in other areas, it'd be different, but we have, so I'd like to consider that. So I'll pass on the concerns and the recommendations to Mr. Peck, and then we'll bring this back as soon as we get the information for an actual vote by the commission. But I wanted to bring this forward for discussion before we took any action on it, because it gives us, Kevin, now a little bit of time to do some more research and answer some questions. So, thank you.
One last thing on that. If in talking about getting additional bids and so forth, the topic comes up of where, I mean, because when, looking at Norm Peck's letter, to you about this, the door isn't totally closed, that they can't make some contribution towards that 16,000. So it would be good to just visit that topic.
Okay.
This was a better year, let's say, for Historical Society to have events and do their kinds of things that help to raise money and so forth. And what's being done to really get this message out to the public that we're going to have this museum, and it'd be a great something to contribute to. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, an action item two, I'll let Kevin and our town treasurer, Scott Frazier, talk to us a little bit, but the town of East Lyme Fire Department, along with the town treasurer, are looking to establish a relationship with some banking institutions that offer far more competitive interest rates than we're currently receiving. I didn't know what basis points were about a month ago. Now I know what basis points are, and I realize, and they'll explain to you what we might be able to realize in added revenue that is not general revenue money. It goes to the undesignated fund balance. So it's not as if, oh, we've got this extra money to spend. So what we need to do is authorize the first selectman to open new bank accounts for the town of East Lyme, and I'll let Kevin talk to it from there.
All right.
Finance Kevin.
Finance Kevin. So I'm Kevin Gervais, the town's finance director. So tonight I brought Scott Frazier here along with me just in case it's a bloodbath. So what we're looking to do is open an account with another financial institution. And when I went to have the town clerk sign off on it, she said, "Where's your resolution?" And I did some digging and looked through. I only went 5 years back and couldn't really find a resolution where the Board of Selectmen gives authority to the first selectman to open bank accounts. And so here we are tonight. So what we're looking to do is, like I said, open up an account with a regional bank that has given us the best interest rate. It's comparable to the STIF, 100% liquid.
Tell everyone what STIF is,
So
because
STIF is
most people here know, but people that are watching might not.
Sure. So the state of Connecticut has a STIF program. It stands for Short-Term Investment Fund, and you can go on. You can type in CT STIF online. Currently, the rate is 2.39%. I imagine tomorrow it'll go up, and it'll keep going up, which is not great if you're trying to buy a home, but it's great if you're trying to maximize interest on a boatload of cash. So that's what we're looking to do. So currently our interest income line in the budget is $20,000, and as of August 31st, we were at $19,998. So we're really looking to blow that revenue line sky high. So every month we can have more cash sitting in a STIF account or higher yield interest account. Millions of dollars we're talking about invested. So it really, you get a lot of interest. So I'm hoping for a couple $100,000 of interest this year.
Could you also explain about because if you have an account and it exceeds 250,000, I think that'd be a good explanation that our money's not at risk.
Yep. So the bank we've decided to go with. We met with 5 financial institutions. Scott's been in my office for the last 2 weeks, almost every day, and we've met with a bunch of banks around town and some other regional banks. And the best product we found was a product from Newtown Savings Bank. It's a ICS product that stands for Insured Cash Sweep. And so if we put $10 million in there, every penny of that is insured through the FDIC, because they take the $10 million and break it down in $250,000 increments, which is the FDIC limit for insurance, and they loan that out to, what's 250,000 divided by, say 10 million, 100 banks or 50 banks, whatever it is. So they break that down, so every penny of it is FDIC insured. That's why it's called an Insured Cash Sweep. So we're not looking at the moment to move accounts payable or payroll or operating accounts. This is just opening a relationship to get a better investment rate for the cash we have sitting there.
And could you pass on what the current rate that we've been getting is?
So we have currently 3 financial institutions that we use in town. One is giving us 8 bips, which that is 0.08%. And the other bank is giving us 80 bips. I think 80 bips is our best rate. And we do have various CDs, some 1.25%. There's some CDs out there. We do have an accounts with the state of Connecticut STIF. The state of Connecticut has its own, I think they work with BNY Mellon. So there's accounts that mirror the STIF rate. They're in the actual STIF program. So this is not in the STIF program. It mirrors the STIF program. For each basis point it goes up. It's nice, it's liquid. So if we eventually RFP for accounts payable and some of the operating accounts, and we find a good bank that'll do business with us, we don't have to wire money from banks to, from this bank to that bank to cover operating. It's just going to be there in one, maybe 2, 3 bank accounts, 2 bank institutions. You got to spread the money a little bit. So we're just looking right now. This resolution is not just for Newtown Savings Bank. It gives, Kevin the authority to open accounts with other financial institutions, which will be good when, maybe we go out to RFP in the spring for.
Any questions for Kevin? Bill?
Well, my only question is actually for the motion itself. The action is to allow the first selectman or town treasurer to transfer money, but the motion says first selectman or individual acting for the first selectman.
Okay, the first part is just individual, the first selectman or individual acting is to open or to sign checks or orders in accordance with state law. The second one allows the selectman, as you can say, that's to make oral or written requests for the transfer of funds between accounts, which is different.
Okay, that's for the.
That's sort of what he was talking to at the end there, where you wanted to move some money around, which is different than signing checks or opening up an account.
So the first selectman can open bank accounts, has the authority to open bank accounts, but the treasurer has the authority to move money between the bank accounts and banking institutions to maximize interest.
So would I, but I assure you, I'm leaving that to those in a better position to do it. Any other questions?
Yes.
Roseanne?
Other towns that you've been involved with, have they used similar procedures to this?
They have. The prior town I came from, I worked in the town of Brookfield. When we were reaching out to these banks, I gave the rep for Brookfield a call and said, "Hey, what can you do for us?" And he said, "I'll offer you the same stuff I gave Brookfield," and that turned out to be the best we could get. The second best was Dime, and they offered us a 1-to-1. So for every dollar we invested in a STIF-like account, the other dollar had to be in a 30 BIP account, which averaged out to 1.35%. So Newtown was over 100 basis points higher. So that's where we went.
And for Mr. Frazier, this was presented to the Board of Finance?
No, just for the resolution, this has to go through the Board of Selectmen.
Right, but I'm asking the discussion about this. Was this discussed by the Board of Finance, and was that a unanimous vote that was taken to support this idea?
Well, this really doesn't fall under the Board of Finance.
Well, I would think that as the other ones that deal with finances, that we would have some sense of their feeling on this.
They were briefed on this, but there was no vote taken. They were aware what the plan was and what the result of the meeting was at last week's meeting, but no vote was taken.
So from my understanding of reading some of the charter, the treasurer and also the Connecticut statutes over it, the treasurer is really in charge of cash management. So we're not incurring any additional fees. This is strictly just finding the best investment vehicle. So I don't think this, I think this is more just this resolution is just to grant Kevin the authority to open the accounts.
And there was, like I said, there was no vote, but the Board of Finance was very favorable to, this type of, moving your money around to get a much better return on our investment.
Thank you.
Yeah, with the interest rates rising so quickly now, we don't want to sit on this because every day it's making a huge difference. So that's why we've been focused on this,
For the last couple of days,
Yeah.
last couple of weeks here. So,
because it's going to be significant. You take, the revenue that comes in two times a year we have, what's it, $80 million plus.
so it's about 35 million each.
Right.
About 70 million in tax
And
revenue.
our burn rate is,
5 million a month, and it depends. It all
Right.
floats with the bond and stuff like that. So in June, July and January, the town, on top of its fund balance, receives an influx of $35 million. The town's not using that $35 million that month. Maybe they use 5 million. That's 30 million that can get invested. 30 million times 3% is a lot of money. It's a lot more than the $20,000 that's in the budget for the whole year. That itself's got to be 30, 40, 50 grand. So that line, that $20,000 line, will be a very big number at the end of the year.
And the institution that you've been talking about, would this just be one institution primarily that you'd be dealing with?
So for what we're doing right now, this is just one institution. And then, later in the spring, once we get the financial statements done, we roll out the time and attendance system. It's really just about allocation of my resources and time. So once I get some of those major projects off my plate, we'll be looking at, maybe going out to RFP for the majority of the banking services. But right now, I don't want to rock too many boats. I just want to make sure I can get a good investment vehicle for the town.
Thank you.
yeah, just to clarify, so the RFP is going to be for the accounts payable and for the payroll accounts, along with investments.
And water and sewer,
Yeah.
and all the operational accounts. This is just, an investment account, but not, stocks and bonds. It's literally, what's the state of Connecticut offering, mirror that.
And
So I guess maybe that's what I'm getting, my question follows that. So there's no way the town can lose money. It's not like a stock where you can.
100% FDIC insured.
Okay, that's what.
Yeah,
just wanted to
that's-
confirm that.
yeah, that's the thing I kept like hearing.
Yeah, I
that's
just wanted to
what
make
you
sure.
want.
We're not
FDIC
gonna-
insured.
Yeah.
And here again too, when you hear about, okay, we're gonna be investing, several million,
Yeah.
that's above, but he explained, then when he told me about the way that it's done to where it's all insured, it was very good. And, here again, as I said, this isn't money for this year, it would be money that might be available for next year, if we so chose, because it goes into the undesignated fund balance when it would come in. So,
But the purpose of this action and the purpose of the motion is to authorize you guys to negotiate with a bank to open up new accounts.
well, but basically for me to open up an
Open the
account,
account.
and then, if there's an opportunity to transfer money and so forth like that, to do that. Right now, there is no resolution that allows that to happen.
Understand that. So when I read this motion, I don't see anywhere in here that it says that you're opening banks. It just says that you're depositing money. I don't see any words in here that says that you're authorizing the first selectman to open new accounts. Unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, I don't see it either.
Well, this has been through what Kevin got and through town attorney, but we could, I'm sure adding those words wouldn't hurt. So maybe for and on behalf of the town of East Lyme, to open bank accounts,
Just
open accounts.
You know what, where it says action needed,
Just use that.
use that language.
I would just, I would just take that
Start there.
sentence and put that sentence down below as well.
Start the motion with that, and
Right.
then continue with the other two paragraphs.
Yeah, I think that's right.
For the specifics.
Okay, so the motion would be the first selectman or individual. we
Move
have-
to authorize, we
Move
move
to,
to
yeah.
authorize
Yeah.
the first selectman to open.
Okay. The first selectman move to authorize the first selectman or individual action first selectman.
Just read exactly what Sarah would say. Just
First
move it.
selectman or treasurer is gonna open the account.
No.
Individuals may deposit, but, right, deposits are different than opening the accounts.
Right, but that's the way that begins, that it's to authorize the first selectman to open new bank accounts for the town of East Lyme, and to authorize the first selectman and the treasurer transfer money between the accounts.
But you can't even create the account until you've authorized the first selectman to open
Right.
it.
So
Yes.
I would use
Exactly.
this,
You're right.
this language and then just continue.
Yeah, I would just
on
take out the word
close enough.
motion and move that above action needed, and
Yes.
there's your motion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that, as a
covers
technical
it.
amendment to the
Yeah.
motion, will satisfy
Okay.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fine.
Okay, so I'll move to authorize the first selectman to open new bank accounts for the town of East Lyme, and to authorize the first selectman and/or the treasurer to transfer money between accounts maintained by the town of East Lyme. The first selectman or individual acting as first selectman is hereby authorized for and on behalf of the town of East Lyme to sign orders or checks in accordance with state law for payment or withdrawal of money from said accounts, and to issue instructions regarding the same, and to endorse for deposit, negotiation, collection, or discount by the financial institution any and all checks, drafts, notes, bills, certificates of deposit, or other instruments or orders for the payment of money owned or held by said municipality. And further, the endorsement for deposit may be in writing, by stamp, or otherwise, with or without designation of signature of the person so endorsing, and any one of the persons holding the offices of first selectman and/or treasurer of this municipality is hereby authorized to make oral or written requests of the financial institution for the transfer of funds or money between accounts maintained by this municipality at the financial institution.
Thank you, Ann. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? See, it's good to have attorneys on the board. And Bill, too, and the engineer. And the engineer.
It's a team effort.
Yeah, it's a team effort. It
Team
really
effort.
works out
Yeah.
well.
It does.
Thank
Be
you.
kind of nice if the motion matched the action, I guess.
You know, maybe,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe that just happened because that language was already there.
I think
had
that's
that
what they
feeling.
thought, yeah.
I wonder if that's what happened, too. I'm starting to think that's what happened,
Put
so,
it in there.
yeah.
Okay, well, that was easy. We didn't have to make it up.
Okay, the next thing is basically to schedule a call for a town meeting. This is the NESEP money that we approved at our meeting, the $25,948.08. Finance approved it last week, so we'll do this and it'll send it to a town meeting. So,
Okay. Notice is hereby given of a special town meeting of the town of East Lyme to be held on October 5th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Eastern Time at the East Lyme Town Hall Upper Meeting Room for the following purposes. 1, to consider and act upon a special appropriation in the amount of $25,948.80 to cover the cost of purchasing the listed equipment for the Emergency Operations Center. Listed equipment is as follows. 1 trailer-mounted message sign, 2 of 3. Cost, $16,625. Second item, one EOC operations computer workstation for $2,481. Third item, 36-inch reflective roll-up traffic directional signs and stands, cost being $5,842.80. Last items, 50 36-inch traffic cones with reflective collars and ELEM identification markings. Essential, this is for $1,000. And the total, again, $25,948.80. And the balance remaining of that grant appropriation is $19,176.20. Secondly, to transact any other business proper to come before the meeting dated at East Lyme, Connecticut, this 21st day of September 2022.
is there a second?
Second.
Second. Is there any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Moving on, now the thing that Jerry and Pat are waiting for. Darrell Pond. This, as Pat said, this has come before us before, but there were some concerns for a lot of things, parking, access to the road because it's not a good road, and basically what is it going to be used for, which is what the whole study is going to be for. But I did some research and I came across a public hearing back in February of 2013, and it specifies a lot of comments by members of the community and so forth like that I included in the thing. But then it also gets down to, it talks about tasking, what they did, and what the committee's reports were for. And, for, yes or no for the following. It listed hiking trails, biking, mountain, picnicking. The first two we had, picnicking was really no tables, that they didn't think that was it. Trail building, yes for 7. Garden plots, agricultural activities, it wasn't recommended. Limited camping, it was sort of a mixed vote, but, a lot of the activities are in there and so forth like that. And right now, Todd Donovan is the chair of this subcommittee here, and they have requested a lot of input from the community, and they're ready to move forward to look at what the recommendation would be moving forward for the piece of property. Because personally, I think right now it's underutilized and underappreciated by the town. I think there's more that can be done up there, and it'll accommodate pollinator pathways. There's interest in putting that up there. Another area for wildlife and so forth. There's some wildlife that they want to have protected, and that's going to be done and looked at. But here again, access coming in from Moss Bay Road, it's a very tight turn in that one corner. The parking lot isn't that big right now, but right now, and also maintaining it. Public Works doesn't go up there. The only one that goes up there right now to perform maintenance during the course of the year is Parks and Rec. And if we're going to be asking them to continue up there for mowing the grass, removing the garbage and that, I think it's something that should be under their control. And the town ordinance says that the Board of Selectmen can place different, specify certain properties such as McCook's, Vetsfield, Bridebrook under Parks and Rec, or other properties which this would fall under. But we could say that, before anything were finalized, it would have to come back to the Board of Selectmen for an endorsement in this case. For instance, you can't put a golf course up there, we know that. You can't put ball fields up there, we know that. But we want to make sure something up there would fit in what was decided. And I talked to Attorney O'Connell about this, and he recommended if we were interested in doing this, the first step would be, as it indicated in the motion, to request the town attorney prepare a resolution for the Board of Selectmen that places a designated area of the Darrell Pound property under the control of Parks and Rec Commission. This would allow them, because here again, we know there's 200 acres plus 100. But if we're going to do a resolution, it really needs to be specific as to outlining the boundaries of that 100 acres and moving forward. So he said they could do that, but the first step would be for us to say, yep, let's request that they do that, which would be the first step, and turn it over. He said it would be available by the time we had our next meeting. So Jerry, do you have anything you'd like to add to this, or Pat? Please.
Good evening. I'm Jerry Locke, and I'm the new Parks and Rec Director in East Lyme. I might be the happiest person in town here tonight. It's my first opportunity to appear before the Board of Selectmen, so thank you for giving us the time and the agenda item. I was honored to be chosen, so I have an opportunity here with the microphone. So those on the interview committee, First Selectman Mr. Siri, we had Parks and Rec Commission members, Jackie Curry, Tom Beebe, and Pat Larkin here were on the committee, so I need to publicly thank them for that selection process and selecting me in the end. And also Dave Putnam, who spent a week of time before he retired to make our transition seamless. So thanks for all of that. Mr. Larkin, I think, did a fine job of giving an overview of in his public comments, and truly we're just here to answer any questions or to address any concerns that there might be about turning this over, and we look forward to a discussion and how we can move this whole project forward and make something up in the Darrell Pond area that serves the community and its visitors well.
Thank you. Questions for Jerry or Pat?
I'll start off. As you're a new person as the director, at least for us, what about the current staffing that we have and the projects that we currently have underway, the parks to maintain? Do you feel that this is something the Parks and Rec Department could take on without having additional staffing?
Well, boy, I was happy a little earlier. That's a tough question, but absolutely on point question. I think managing the park, as Mr. Siri mentioned, we're already up there doing some limited maintenance already. So that's not going to change. If the results of the master plan come up with certain amenities that need to be added there, that's the time when I'll be able to give you an answer to your question. But if the property gets developed in some way, I think it's probably a reasonable expectation that there might need to be additional resources put into maintaining whatever it is. Certain properties are, if you take a Bridebrook Park, heavily maintained, no, we would not be able to do that at Darrow Pond. But you have other properties that are, have minimal maintenance, and it may be possible, but certainly I think the results of the master plan would tell us what amenities the community should put there. And once we have that answer, we would determine what level of maintenance would be required to maintain it. And that's when the answer to the question, that's right on point, would happen.
One of the concerns, which is not necessarily for Parks and Rec, but is the condition of the existing road, which people would access to then get onto the little dirt path to go up. So I think that's a major concern of people, is the fragility of that road leading into before you actually get into the park. So it's really not a question for Parks and Rec, but it's certainly something for consideration, especially for the residences there as well. So I'll pass on to somebody else who has questions.
Dan?
So if I'm understanding, the procedure tonight would be to, not really to act on anything tonight, but to seek guidance from
Well, no,
council.
it would be ask council to prepare a resolution that would place it under Parks and Rec.
And then we would have the opportunity to review that resolution.
Yes.
And make any changes
Yes.
to it as we see fit in our discussions.
Yes.
So I think until we have that in front of us, it's a little bit hard to predict what what authority is going to be if we go forward with it, what authority Parks and Recs will have, and what authority or oversight that the Board of Selectmen will have. And I think that's really important to understand that piece of it before we can go too much further. I think we need to know what oversight we're going to have.
I think as the motion, as it's written, states, you're going to have the town's attorney draft a motion that, or a resolution that the Board of Selectmen can agree to that defines exactly those things. So tonight, my understanding is the vote is just on authorizing the town's council to draft that resolution that sets those limits. And that will be another vote that the board would take. Right. Once that resolution gets finalized, then you take the vote, and then I think that's the point where the transfer of authority would happen.
Right. The motion is to have somebody write a motion.
It's have a resolution that basically identifies. But here again, it's going to take the town council some time to do this, which doesn't come, for free. So I want to be sure that before we ask them to do that, and start identifying the boundaries, because they'll have to do, the title search for the property and so forth like that. And, moving forward too, I think we need to specify too, as Mrs. Hardy pointed out about the road. That's where the subcommittee would reach out to the police commission, who's the local traffic authority, to get them to do an input, and Parks and Rec, Public Works would have to do some research as well, because their vehicles are going through there. So that's something we'd have to address and, look for a recommendation in that area too. But, I think we need to take that first step to get everything in that direction moving so that we can finally see some nice utilization of that property. It's really nice. Ann?
Okay. Just to clarify, what exactly would be being placed under the Park and Rec? Like how many acres?
So my understanding is it's a 300 give or take acre parcel, and there's a certain amount of that property that's under a conservation easement, approximately 200 acres, leaving about a third of the property that would be open for some type of limited development. or enhancement, I guess is a better word.
So those 100 acres, that's the one you're gonna.
Correct.
Yeah, well, what they'll do is make sure that we know the boundaries of that 100, so it's differentiated from the 200 that have the conservation easement, and to make sure our boundaries are really, so we know exactly the piece of property that will be given to them, so there's no question that later on no, this is ours, no, it's yours type of thing.
Okay.
So the study we authorized isn't going to include that?
No, the study is basically how to utilize it. Their job is not to basically determine the boundaries and so forth. It's how to best utilize the resources of that 100 acres.
Okay. So there is a cost associated with this motion, or the motion that's going to come out of this motion. There will be a cost to do the survey.
Well, yeah, for the town
Because
attorney.
the way that my mind's had this whole thing is that it's town property, and you're going to assign a custodian, and the custodian's going to take care of the property. I mean, and it didn't seem to me like there was any additional work. All you're doing is assigning somebody responsible for it. But if the first thing that we're going to do was start doing surveys,
No, it's not, no, it's just gonna be basically a title search. I mean, it won't be sending people up there to do a survey.
you're not going to take that 300 acres and say, okay, here's the 100 acres that we're going to use for the...
You will, but you won't have a survey done. You're not gonna do a level 2 survey or anything. It's just gonna be a quick title search.
Just a crayon that's going to draw around the map and say this is going to be the area that...
Pretty much, that's it. I mean, which they can do that. And here again, to be honest with you, we'll probably have our planning department be doing most of that anyway, so, you know.
So they know where the easement's at and everything else.
Yeah.
It's been some time since I looked at the deed. So perhaps, well, of course, the town attorney will go back and look at that. But I don't think in the deed that it specifies the location of that 100 acres. I mean, the 100 piece.
I think I've seen a map with the 200 acres separated from the 100 acres.
I've seen it somewhere.
When we had the presentation by Dave Putnam, it might have been, he may have shown that on the map
Yeah.
of where that 100 acres is in relation to everything else up there.
It actually,
I don't have that handy.
I think this is it.
Yeah,
You
Yeah.
need
that
a,
map, okay.
it's a
Yeah, I do
micro
have it.
version.
Well, yeah,
I think if that were blown up, it would give you some of that detail that
Yeah.
you're asking for.
Okay.
Yeah, if I had it on the computer, I'd blow it. Oh, wait, I did.
Yeah.
Right, and
So you may be able
and
to.
you guys have it in color too,
That's
so,
right.
I mean,
let's see if I can find it.
So
So
I think
it's
that's where that information is.
That page 4?
But I do remember him discussing that.
but I just want to be sure that, you know, here again, moving forward, I want to be sure that there's no question about this is the 100 acres we're talking, because that happens on occasion where, you're off by, 100 feet, we're going to use this for trails and whatnot. We want to make sure that that's not something that comes back, because we see that happen way too often.
Yeah, there's not enough detail
I
here.
can't tell.
Yeah.
So do we have a draft motion tonight?
Yes, we
Yes,
do.
we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I could read that.
Okay.
Move to request that the town attorney prepare a resolution for the Board of Selectmen that places a designated area of the Darrow Pond property under the control of the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Here again, this just gets us that resolution, which will, with some specificity, say this is the area, and we'll actually see what it looks like, and with a recommendation. And we can also, I know Roseanne is concerned to make sure that, you'll need more than just, obviously we'll want probably, at least endorsements by a board of, the police commission as the local traffic authority, and by the board of selectmen before moving forward with any type of activity up there. But that's what the resolution, so. Any other questions? Okay.
Are all of the other parks in town specifically turned over to Parks and Rec? Or are they simply the maintainers?
No, they're turned over to them. There's an ordinance on page 39 of our ordinance book that lists which ones, and it does specify McCook's, Bridebrook, Vets, several of the others, and other properties designated by the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
So the thing is, and I tried to do some research to find if there are other properties, and I couldn't find any. And that was with the help of our expert assistant town clerk, so.
I I had just a question about the master plan study, for which there was the ARPA funds given. So did I understand from Mr. Larkin that that contractor has been selected? Is that correct? Did I mishear that?
We have selected the proposal, but we have not signed a contract with it yet.
Okay, I see. Okay. Well, that's good. I mean, you're moving forward on that.
We decided, the commission decided not to spend the money until we knew what the town's stance on the
Okay.
property was.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? All, Dan?
No.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That carries unanimously, so let's hope by next meeting, Ed said he should have the eligibility. And Jerry, I can talk with you about language and so forth like that, so you can share it with your commission.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All righty.
Moving on now, again, this is not for action, but we have a draft for the charter revision. Here again, as I indicated, this would obviously just be for discussion tonight because I just got the draft today from the town attorney. You know, the first few are boilerplate, and I think one of the things we could probably do tonight is not appoint anybody because obviously, but we had discussion about 9 or 11 electors of the town of East Lyme, and I think Bill Weber made a good point, having served on a previous charter revision, that when it comes to the committees and so forth like that, it's good to have those extra couple people. So is there agreement that 11 would be a good number?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. Now, it has to, so 11, the minority representation is, you know, it has to be taken into consideration. Is there a thought of how we would want to do this? I was thinking, and here again, this is just a thought on my part, because there's actually a couple of people who are on affiliates that have history or some good background in town government that would like to be involved. I was thinking 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and 3 unaffiliates, or if somebody was with the independent party, but 3 unaffiliates. That way, it would give both major parties the same representation and provide a decent representation from the unaffiliates, which is really the biggest block of people that live in the town.
Is it now?
Yeah.
Last time I saw it was just about 1/3, 1/3, 1/3.
Oh, no, I assure you, the Republicans are not close to 1/3.
So it's 4, 4, 3, 4 Dems,
4
4 Republicans,
And
3
3 unaffiliates, yeah. And, you know, I'd ask for Dan and Antrichello to come back with, you know, go to, to Jason Deeble, however you'd want to do that, and come back with a recommendation. And Bill and I will do it as well. And Roseanne, if you can think of anyone from the unaffiliate area, that would be great as well. So, and come up with, I would only bring forward the 4 names of people that you're comfortable bringing forward, yeah, rather than.
Well, I think it can only be like 3 elected officials.
It could only
Is
be,
that correct?
you can only have 3 elected officials on there,
Meaning currently serving.
currently serving.
Yes, and no more than a bare majority from the same political party.
Right,
so
and
that's
this is
better.
like, it keeps it nice and to where you don't give a voting, I didn't want to see a voting majority to any political party.
So if you limit that further to 1 elected official from each party, you have a maximum of 3, but if you limit to 1 per party, now you've got 2, so that opens it to a little bit further.
Okay, I mean, as far as more opportunities, you mean?
Yeah, as
Yes.
the 3 groups go off to come up with their candidates, if
Yeah.
you say, we only want 1 elected official from the Ds and 1 from the Rs and 1 from the Us,
Okay, sure.
then that prevents.
A maximum of 1, because,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
who knows, we might say, no, I don't want to, type of thing, so maximum of 1.
No, the other issue was that I remember the Board of Ed was interested in having somebody
Okay,
their board on it, and I don't know if it would be what their party affiliation would be.
yeah,
That's the only,
well, we have one,
you know.
we already have, I think they're good with someone who has indicated an interest who wants to come on, that's affiliated with the board, or has knowledge of the board, but not necessarily a member. So I think that,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
All right.
so I think they're good there.
Well, I don't know why preference should be given to them and not to any of the other important
That's where I was
commissions in
at.
town.
Well, exactly.
Because I think that every
Yeah.
board was gonna say the same thing. Planning's gonna say,
Yeah, we
well, you
want
talked
to
about
send
planning and
someone.
zoning, so you should have zoning and planning people on here.
And to be honest, and you know, the charter deals less with the Board of Ed than it does any other board or
Right.
commission as
Yeah.
well. So, but, yeah, so,
I don't think we should really strap ourselves in too tightly. I think we should see who's interested.
And strive for diversity,
And-
try to make sure we get
and
as broad of a
those
cross-section of the town as we can.
Well, broad cross-section in different skill sets too.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly, so
okay.
it just
Excellent.
shouldn't be 4 Republicans and 4 Democrats. It should be people who have some knowledge of the
Exactly.
town and interest and has had some involvement. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think that these people should be interviewed. I don't think either political party should single-handedly decide who they want to serve.
Well, I mean, I don't know that we could be able to interview everybody that, you know, I think that'd be tough, because you could have 40 or 50 people and that would be interested in serving. And, you know, I think that's one of the reasons we have town committees and people that, you know, to bring forward some.
Although we could use our, like, let's say, okay, so it's, you know, Ann and Dan on the Dem side who kind of whittle away at a large number that might be interested, and same for us.
You come back with 6
And come
and
back
6 or
with-
something.
Or
Suggestion.
we
Like,
just take a
yeah.
bunch of suggestions and then see how many we have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then kind of take it from there as to how we want to
Yeah.
Right.
narrow it
Well,
down.
let's see who the candidates
these-
are, and then
who
let's see
they
how we all
Okay.
feel about it, and
Yeah.
try to come
Yeah.
up with a fair.
But I,
So you could, Kevin, you could set a target number, but instead of 2 and 2 and 2, or 3 and 3 and 3, whatever the numbers were.
4, 4, and 3.
You could, you
Four,
could
4 and 3.
have each one of the groups come back with 6 or something, and then say, okay, we're gonna interview 6 Rs and 6 Ds and 6 Us, and then from each one of those, this board or some other subcommittee is gonna down select to the 3, 3, and 4.
I think it should be this board that obviously selects.
the total board.
Yeah.
So that's just a logistical question I had in my head about, let's say we're down to, you know, the 4 and a spare or something like that, or you know, not too many. We're staying, you know, between 11 and 15 people that seriously are interested and seem to fit some criteria, you know, as Ed O'Connell had established for us, you know,
Yeah.
et cetera. So we talked about that last meeting too, and Roseanne just mentioned it again. So logistically, what does that look like when we interview? Are we doing that in like this, you know, in open forum? Are we doing that? You know, how are we doing that?
I don't know that
You know?
an interview would be it, but you just might ask them to get up and, you know, indicate why they have an interest in it.
Okay.
I don't think giving it back
Okay.
and forth questioning.
Yeah.
And here again, that could be extremely time
Right,
consuming.
right, okay.
and-
I just wanted to have a sense of the logistics of it.
What?
All the typical interviewing questions that I ask about, you know, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh, yeah, well, I don't, yeah, I'm
I
sure,
didn't mean it
I'm
that way,
sure
but
the question would be something.
What's your
I hope-
greatest weakness?
Yeah, what's your
Oh
greatest?
my God. But, okay.
No,
so-
I think,
And we-
Well, I mean, I have a list.
We've done some, I guess we will have done some screening, you know, by
Well, here
virtue
again,
of our little
you
groups.
know, getting back to, maybe ask, you know, people to submit a letter of interest, you know,
Mm-hmm.
indicate that they're interested in serving on it. And, you know, at our next meeting, they'll be invited in. And here again, we'll give them, everybody gets, you know, sort of, we won't have Roseanne's timekeepers like we do at the school from years ago, but we'll have some, you know, somebody will just keep like, okay, they have a minute to give us what they like and why they'd like to do it, and just a brief background.
Right, right.
Make it like a minute.
Right,
Maybe a
okay,
minute and a half, yeah,
okay.
because a minute goes by way
So
too
I
fast.
guess my question is, if, you know, we're talking to people, what's the time commitment for somebody who's on one of these boards?
Okay,
Because that's gonna be a question.
Okay, this
They
would,
need to know that.
this would have, they would have to have completed their work by the end, and we'll have to pick the end date in August of 2023, because this would be a ballot question for the municipal election of 2023. And the Secretary of State needs those by, I think, Brooke, you would know, early in September, correct?
Yeah,
Okay, early in September of 2023. And, you know, and Bill, I think you could probably give a better idea of that because you've served on one.
So that's really where the question comes. I think Ann's question more specifically is how many hours a week are we expecting these people to contribute?
Yeah,
Right,
so
it's
they're
like-
gonna ask that, they're gonna say,
I
what is
got it
this,
that you're gonna
you
be
know?
busy from now till September of '23, whatever it is. But is it gonna be a whole bunch of subcommittees where you're gonna be asked to give? Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be up to the subcommittees to determine how often they have to meet. I mean, but
It depends on the topics. I've
Right.
served on 3 charter revision commissions, and they're all very different. It depends on what subcommittee you're on. Some are more intensive than others. But I would say that I think Bill's estimate is a good estimate. You're gonna be meeting at least 3 times a month. Because whatever you decide on the subcommittee has then got to come back and merge with the whole.
And I would anticipate too, as you get closer to the deadline is when the intensity of things will, you know, get, I mean, and here again, fortunately now, there's the availability of a Zoom meeting, things like that, which will make life a little bit easier, I think, on people. You know, it's an option they always have, but, you know, and here again, it would be up to whoever chairs and the members of the committee whether they want to, how often they want to meet in person or how often they want to meet in Zoom. But I think we should give them, you know, I think more work gets done when you meet in person than when you meet in Zoom. But there, you know, especially if it's just like, okay, someone's required to do some reporting or gather some information, and that's all that is a fact-finding meeting. Well, that might be a good Zoom meeting type thing.
Are all these meetings, subcommittees, are they with like agendas and secretaries?
Yeah,
and
they'll have to be,
think.
it'll have to be posted with an agenda and foilable, so there has to be minutes of it too. And here again, minutes don't have to be extremely
for
detailed.
the subcommittee that I chaired, I recorded and published the meeting minutes.
Yeah,
I didn't have somebody else doing that for us.
yeah. Oh, no, that's just it. I mean, we'd ask the person to do their own minutes, because, you know,
Yeah, no, I just
We wanna
wasn't sure
limit-
if that was,
yeah, we're gonna spend enough on the attorney, so.
exactly.
Although I told Ed that, you know, he owes us, so. But I think that's really good, you know, let's, you know, limit it to,
So if we're gonna have this extra step in the process, do you have a timeline kind of mentally laid out?
yes. You know, I
'Cause
think.
we just added this extra,
Well, I was going to appoint, I would have liked to have done it at the first meeting in October, but we'll do it, we can have the people come and speak next meeting, and then they can present, and then we can approve the charge with the members and that at the second meeting.
and that's my concern, is if we keep stretching out the front end
No,
of the
I
process.
think, but here again, we're less than a month away from having it formed, so they'll have a good couple months before really Christmas hits and, you know, they lose some time. And so I think we're good
So you
there.
want people to come into the next meeting and
Yeah, if they're
So then
interested,
like a
if they're
minute?
interested in serving just like a minute, no
Okay.
more than 90 seconds, and they'll be cut off at 90 seconds.
okay.
Well,
Likes
within a limit, I mean, not 90 seconds, but they'll be cut off, you know, a
Okay.
couple minutes in.
You're not used to
You know, I do remember the last time we had,
They're gonna
90
make
seconds.
important
90
decisions. I
seconds is a
think
long
they
time.
could, I
Okay.
think we'd listen to them for 3 minutes.
okay, we'll do 3 minutes a person. We'll try and minimize the agenda then.
Should we scare them away with the basic steps?
We have to memorize those steps.
Yeah, in fact, and that's just it.
It'll be a
I
quiz
would,
at the end of
that's, I think the simplest thing is to just give them that one sheet, that one handout that Ed gave us, which is really good about it. They say, this is what you're gonna be expected to, you know, oversee over the next,
One for the
yeah.
hills when they see it,
Oh.
okay.
So that's October 5th then, the next meeting?
October 5th will be the
Okay.
next meeting.
Right.
So are we going to ask them to submit something in writing as well as appear?
Yes. Here again, and it can be just a short, you know, little intro of this is who I am and my background and why I'd like to serve on it, and they're welcome to.
So a letter of interest by them?
Yeah.
Directed to you?
Eastland
to the
Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen.
I would like to see some kind of background. I mean,
If they have a
Yeah.
resume,
in the
that'd be
event that it's
interesting.
somebody I don't know, it might be nice to know that he was, you
Yeah.
know, a
Well,
Boy Scout for 1 year.
by-
You know, whether it's this, that, and the other thing.
I'll tell you, by
So when-
Friday, I'll send out a, basically, the things that we'd ask the
That
person
you
to do.
would-
Name,
okay.
date, how long have you been a resident, any municipal background you have, something along those lines.
Clubs and organizations.
Clubs,
and
organizations.
churches And all that kind of good stuff.
Exactly. So,
And they have to be registered voters, I see.
yes, they have to be electors of the town. They can't be just taxpayers. They have to be an elector of the town of East Lyme.
That'll save some time.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
And then moving on,
Where are
the
we?
following recommendations, these are just things Ed put down from meeting, consider possible elimination of the automatic budget referendum. And here again, this is where it's a draft. Take a look at this and feel free to make any comments moving forward, because it's hard to sit down and discuss this tonight, but, take time to look over it. Possible merging of planning commission and zoning commission. Some towns have done that. We've looked at that in the past and said no. Possible amendment to section 2.7 to 4-year terms for the selectmen and 2 or 4-year terms for the first selectman. So, those are, just consider possible removal of town clerk and tax collector from elective offices and add said offices, not to appointive, but I talked with Ed, administrative offices, because if it's appointive and it's a term, then you can have someone doing a job, and then, different administration comes in at some point in time, and okay, your appointment's up, I've got someone I want to put in there. So it would be basically you're appointed that position.
Does that impact the payment of the people?
They would be part of the unaffiliated group as far as so forth like that, but that's all.
Okay.
I mean, I would, they would bargain there. And then they would be subject, because right now elected officials serving have no specified vacation time or sick time or time off. And I'm sure none of us abuse it, but anyway. Possible exemption from the residence requirements set forth in section 412 of certain appointed offices such as emergency management, dog warden, because we don't have a dog warden anymore. We'll change that to animal control officer, but that's a regional. And there's a couple other offices. Eliminate references to constables and special constables because they do not exist anymore. Consider the possible amendment of section 634 to provide that if the Board of Finance does not act on requests for special appropriations or transfers of funds within the specified time, which is now 30 days, the result is an automatic approval, because that became a little bit of a problem last year. Consider the possible amendment of the section to provide that projects funded entirely by grants from the state of Connecticut do not require an appropriation of funds of town funds need not be approved by the Board of Finance or a town meeting. Because what we're going to town meeting tonight is we've delayed by a month our ability to purchase that because of having to go through the approval process. Consider the possible amendment of section 631 to provide that the current dollar threshold of $10,000 for special town meetings be raised. I was going to put a number in there, but Ed said no. Let that commission decide, which makes.
Good idea. Yeah.
Consider the possible addition of an appointive officer named operations officer, or we can change that to assist the first selectman in the performance of his or her administrative duties. Consider the possible amendment of section 34 to eliminate newspaper publication when allowed by law and substitute electronic or website notice. Currently, we have to spend several $100s on an ad, which we could do it electronically at almost no cost or at no cost. And then 12, 13, and 14, if there's other things people or more that they would like to have looked at. This does not mean these are going. We all have to, or not all, but would have majority of us have to agree on what we send forward to the Charter Revision Commission. And then further resolve, and then it says, selectmen honored before, we'll have to come up with a firm date for that at the next meeting. And that once they turn the report into us, we can send it back once, but once they come back to us, their job is done at that point in time. Then it's up to us to say yes or no to that. So that's it. And here again, I won't ask for any input into what we just discussed, because you just need it now. So anyway, any other comments on that? I really appreciate the input too for how we get people done, because that's what something I'm trying to think of.
Just
How do you
logistics.
cast that wide net to get people who are really interested, really have a lot to contribute? So I very much appreciate the input. Yeah. Okay, I think that's it. Moving on. Ex officio reports, I'll start with you, Bill.
They were both canceled, so you can start with me if you'd like, but they were both canceled
Okay, Ann,
due to lack of agenda.
okay.
Last night I attended the East Lyme Harbor Management Shellfish Commission meeting, and right now we're dealing with the resignation of Ron Johnson, who's a harbor master. So in order to get a new harbor master, we have to come up with 3 names that we then submit to the governor and make a recommendation. And there's a lot of work involved in being a harbor master. There's a lot of administrative work. And then there's also a whole nother host of work on the water. So one of the gentlemen was talking about the moorings, and in East Lyme, a mooring is $25 for somebody. Norwich is $50. Essex is $110 per mooring. Stonington is $100 for commercial and $50 for residential. So they're thinking about actually raising the price of a mooring somewhere between the vicinity, this is what they were throwing out, between $75 and like $100. Because I guess a lot of people come for like 2 weeks, put out a mooring, leave, and then there's a lot of paperwork to do, and then they leave the mooring and the harbor master has to go out. The gentleman's harbor master's paperwork, he brought a file. The notebook is literally like 8 inches thick. It is like, and he was just saying there's so much work. I spent hours and hours doing this. So they're looking into trying to get maybe like a software program, and also having some administrative help. And the idea was if they increased the rate on the moorings, then they could use the funds to hopefully help with the administrative help that the harbor master would need. So that was kind of the discussion last night, and we're going to meet again, next month, and I guess people will come back. They had 2 other names. Mr. Londergan was one, and then they had also 2 other names, but they are talking to the people some more, because once they hear about how much work is involved, and it's basically a volunteer position, there's a small stipend.
$450 a year.
Yeah, it's $450. It's not very much for the hours and hours that are used for it. So that was what happened at last night at the meeting.
Okay, anything else, or just the harbor? Is that all?
No, that's all I had. I didn't have
And
anything
it was a
else.
busy enough meeting by the sound of it, too.
Yeah, no, we were out after. Yeah, it was late. Yeah, definitely.
So,
I went to the East Lyme Public Library Board of Trustees meeting a week ago, September 12th. As usual, a lot going on there. Lisa Timothy has now submitted her annual report to the State Library, and good news that all numbers, it seems, are up, like patrons coming in, program attendance, and she said it's almost trending towards pre-COVID levels. So that was I thought good news. There's a new head of reference, Kathy Shields, who's started in. The plaque that I talked about last time, indicating the Children's Museum location, which was the first location of the library. There'll be a plaque there, and that will actually will arrive at the end of the month. So there'll be some ceremony around that whole installation of that plaque. I guess we also talked about the History Center, the History Museum, and Lisa was encouraging folks to fill out that survey online, which is, what would you like to see at this History Center? And there's a couple of surveys up there's one for the general public on the East Lyme Library site. Might be something that, I don't know if we can at least point to that in town news or something, but get something that sends people to those 2 sites, Historic Society and library, on that topic. The big, most of the time at the meeting was spent on reviewing the patron privacy policy, which is very interesting. This has been going on for a bit, and still refining some things, but a decision was basically made. It's almost finalized, but basically, to really abide by the policy of patrons and not to be giving out information. This is by virtue of state statute. But also, interestingly, there's no carve-out for parents of minors in our state statute. So for the moment being, the library is feeling we will abide by what the state statute says, but that might be something that's amended in the future. But it was an interesting conversation about it. So that will be all that entire policy will be finalized soon, and it does have carve-outs for court orders and this type of thing. So it was a very interesting conversation. But otherwise, that was it for me.
Okay, Dan?
Well, I had the opportunity to attend actually 2 Board of Education meetings in September, and they are struggling with about a $500,000 deficit for the 2022-2023 budget, and a lot of it's related to increase in health care costs, health insurance. So they're grappling with that and trying to see what they can do to mitigate that deficit. Another thing, there was some discussion about they need a new truck, a maintenance truck, that they do, I guess, much of their own snow plowing, and they have I guess they have 3 trucks, and one of them is beyond its useful life, and the frame is shot. So they are going to use money that was left over from Learn, Project Learn. I guess there was an account that had funds in it from when Learn used to lease space from the Board of Education, and they're going to use some of those funds to purchase a new maintenance truck with a lift and a plow, and replace the hot water heater that needs in the East Lyme Middle School.
Middle school.
Yep, so that's that. And I guess staffing has been a big problem, as with most of the school systems, just finding good qualified people to staff the school operation has been very difficult. Some good things. The board was recognized by the Connecticut Association of Board of Educators, or Board of Education, that's CABE, C-A-B-E. So they received an award, and they were working on this Flanders School greenhouse that they're very excited about, which will, I think, provide opportunities for students to get inside the greenhouse and do some gardening, and I think they're really excited about that, as I think they should be. And so that was my 2 meetings with the Board of Ed. I also attended the Wellsco Waterford East Lyme Shellfish Commission, and they are going to be purchasing oyster seed to be distributed in the appropriate areas in the river to try to get more oyster stock growing in the river. Of course, it takes years for it to mature. There had been a problem with workers' compensation because Wellsco is a creature of state, and it's not Waterford, it's not East Lyme. And so they were having difficulty obtaining workers' compensation for the employees of Wellsco. That the fellows go out in the boat and take the water samples. But they found a resolution to that, and so they're very thankful that that's been resolved. They found a way to place that insurance. Another thing of interest is there is an eelgrass planting project that's going to get underway in the river. And what I didn't appreciate is that I guess you could put iron ore, a certain amount of iron, powdered iron, down. It really helps the eelgrass to take hold and to really get started in the river. So I don't know if that will be, as that project starts, I don't know if there's any of either the high school or the middle school, there might be some opportunity for some of the students to observe or kind of learn a little bit about that process and kind of monitor the potential success of the eelgrass getting back into the river. And let's see. I guess that's about it. I did. I also attended the It was the final meeting for Dave Putnam at the Parks and Rec, and I'm sure bittersweet for the members there and the commission. But you know, they really sounds like they had a great season as far as revenues from the you know, the beach passes and the maintenance of the various fields, and so they really had a very positive report, and they're very happy how this season went. So that's my report.
Roseanne?
I have no report this evening.
Okay.
I'll do double next time.
Okay. Okay, real quick, you know, I was just gonna talk about positions tonight. You met two of them tonight, Kevin, Finance, or Kevin's been here before. But Park and Rec, you met Jerry. Jerry's hit the ground running, very interested. Tomorrow, Joe Burgaw and I are meeting to find out how to better take care of some of the things that Roseanne brought up about maintaining parks, because they are also required to, you know, get rid of the garbage on Main Street and stuff like that, to how best utilize our resources for that. IT director, I'm waiting to hear back. I'm supposed to hear back from someone that we made an offer to yesterday. He works up in Washington, Connecticut right now, but he has a house that they in Waterford, and they'd like to relocate here, so we're hoping to hear back then. We have HR director interviews next week. We have a new hire, Dina Barry. She's the HR assistant, and she has really done a great job over the last few weeks. She's gone up and shadowed the HR director in Ledyard. He's been down here to really help out. So, and this is on her own initiative too. She said, asked me if it was all right to go there. I said, more than definitely. So, a lot of initiative there, but we'll be looking for the director position next week. You saw in the paper a new, but not really a new, but he's chief again. John McDonald is the chief at Niantic Fire Station and or Niantic Fire Department. And we want to thank Jim Barone, who spent 2 years as a chief there. Jim has basically been a volunteer his whole life, and there's no one dedicated more to the fire service and providing first response care to people in town than Jim Barone. So thank him for his service. We met today. I met today with the chief, the EMD director and assistant EMD director, with Eversource, our third quarterly meeting. Let's talk about storm response, which was interesting because Fiona is lurking out there, but not looking like it's coming here. One of the things that was, things have gotten a million times better over the last couple of years, but one concern we had was the handling of outages. If someone calls Eversource to report an outage and not us, we don't have that on our board. It doesn't show up for about 30 minutes, when then, because it takes that long for Eversource to post on their board. We brought that to our attention. They had a representative here today. She said early next year they're planning on addressing that, so that when Eversource knows, we know, and vice versa. So Main Street 185, they're getting ready to pave the lot out there, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. Sift Baker will be open. If you've noticed, they've lined Grand Street and Smith Avenue, and so that there's shoulders and a center line so that people know where to be in the road and where to park, because that will be a problem once Sift Bakery opens for parking there. They're also going to look at making Smith Avenue and Grand Street a four-way stop sign. That's got to go before the police commission. Then they're doing a study now to see if that would be warranted, because there'll be a lot of out-of-town people not familiar with it coming in, and you have to park on Grand Street. So we think that might not be a bad idea, but it'll be up to them. Our they had a vintage car show last Friday night, very successful down there. Wish a few more people would have been there, but it was good for the merchants and so forth like that. From 4 to 7, it was really good. I left halfway through it, but I had a good time up to the football game. The load tip grant has been submitted. This is the one for East Patagonia Road. We're hopefully to put sidewalks on and do some road upgrade, but that is been submitted, so we'll wait. We should know by the end of next month whether we get that money to put sidewalks in the length there and so forth. I think I've mentioned before, October 27th at 6 p.m. at the high school, there'll be a Route 161 corridor presentation. They'll talk about everything basically from the high school south to its intersection with 156 and the phases. We've started paving. If you came tonight, you possibly could have gotten caught in it. They're doing Lakeview Heights. They're doing Yeah, of course, right over here.
Joanne?
No, not Joanne. Clark
Clark.
and Cove, I believe, are the two they're doing right now. So that's up and running right now with that. Moving on to positive, good stuff. The retirement party for Dave Putnam. Dan and I attended that a week ago Tuesday. It was a great, about 100 people there from all different areas to come and thank him for everything. We also dedicated up at the VFW, Sue Cumrow Field. Sue has done a lot to raise money for the, she owns Mermaid Liquors, very active in the Main Street organization. Done a lot to help raise money for the VFW. Because of her, they were able to fix their septic system. So there's a field directly behind it that was called Sue Cumrow Field. And a couple of people after they saw it, they said, we didn't know Sue was sick. And I said, no, this was done. It had nothing to do with that, so.
She helps all veterans, not just the.
No, I shouldn't say, yeah, no, Sue helps everybody.
She helps the Legion too.
Yeah, she helps the Legion, she helps them, she's helped Karen Share. Sue just helps everyone. This Saturday, the 24th, is the Oyster Festival from 12 to 6 behind St. John's. It's a great time. The admission is free, but if you want to eat, you've got to buy tickets. So, so that's, and it's a fundraiser for Miracle League. So please come down, enjoy it. It's always a great time. The following day at the VFW is the Cornhole Tournament in the afternoon. I'm not sure of the time, but I've participated in that every year. I failed to make it out of the first round, but it's a great time, and all the proceeds, and this is again, Sue's going to be working on the Oyster Festival for Thursday, and then for Friday, for Saturday, the Oyster Festival, Sunday, the Cornhole Tournament. And then on the 8th of October, we'll have another meeting. Before then is the Vintage Market on Main Street from 10 o'clock through the day. So some good stuff going, some fall activities coming up, and that's about it. So, any questions? Seeing none, there's no public comment or selectmen's response, so we need to move into executive session. And Brooke, you can go home now, because by the time we come out, we can do that. So, would you take the motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so, move to enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate matters, Hathaway property, and personnel matters, firefighters union, police union. The board entered into executive session at 8:37 p.m.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We're in executive session. We'll take a 5-minute break. So,
the board returned from executive session at 9:22 p.m. and no formal votes were taken.
okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everybody. Thank you.